The places Zika hit the hardest are also some of the most popular tourist destinations. Thousands of travelers from around the globe canceled trips to countries across South America and the Caribbean. According to the Washington Post, places like Puerto Rico saw tourism declines of up to 5% during the worst months of the outbreak in 2016. As a result, experts estimate businesses lost millions of dollars in revenue. They say young women and couples accounted for most of this shift, opting instead for vacation spots outside areas impacted by the disease. I spoke to Travel and Leisure magazine editor-in-chief Jacqui Gifford for her insights. Jacqui, thank you so much for being here. When this outbreak happened, there was so much concern, and I wonder now, given what we've seen over the last few years, has there been a change in terms of numbers when it comes to tourism in places like Brazil, in Latin America more broadly, in the Caribbean, places where we know the Zika virus reached?
Right, so when we're talking about tourism numbers, the honest answer is yes, that there was a little bit of a dip when it came to the Caribbean, when it came to Brazil, but we're really talking about a specific market and a specific type of traveler. So pregnant women, obviously, couples that were thinking of conceiving. It's not like the entire destinations, didn't get any tourists. I mean, look, the reality is there were plenty of people that went to Rio for the Olympics. There are plenty of people that still travel to the Caribbean all the time. It's just really that specific market, that honeymoon market, the baby moons. There was a little bit of a dip in the destination wedding business, group business, because young couples were concerned about traveling to these places. So when we're talking about the dip in numbers, it's really that specific type of traveler.
And so what about now, 3 years later? Have things sort of leveled out, or are we still seeing that one group kind of staying away from these places?
Things have leveled out a little bit. I mean, honestly, these are destinations that are so popular with American travelers, and when it comes to the Caribbean too, I mean, we have to look at what happened to that region on a whole over the past couple years. They were greatly impacted by Hurricanes Irma and Maria, but now really tourism is starting to pick up again, and I've been traveling to these places many times myself, and I do see plenty of young couples there traveling. So it's important to put it in perspective given things that happened before and the changes that are happening now.
I wonder if there was any kind of ripple effect. Places that were not necessarily affected by Zika, did they see a boost at all in their tourism numbers?
Some did. So for example, Bermuda. So Bermuda, a lot of people actually think it's in the Caribbean. It's not. It's off the coast of North Carolina. And I've been many times over the past couple of years, and I have to say they saw a huge amount of young couples start to travel on their honeymoon, on their baby moons. And when I was there, I talked to these young couples, and they would tell me that they picked Bermuda because of the fact that there was no Zika there. And in many cases, it was even the doctors suggesting that they go. Another destination that saw an uptick in business was Hawaii. Again, it's always been a place where people went for destination weddings and honeymoons, but because of the larger global impact, they saw more travelers going for that reason.
And more broadly, so since the outbreak, the demographics that you talked about of the people who are looking to become pregnant, those kinds of folks who are looking to start families, has the demographic changed at all in some of these more popular destinations in the Caribbean and Latin America?
I mean, I think you're going to see, the reality is you're going to see travelers of all ages when you go to these destinations, and they're such popular places for tourists. And when you're going to a resort in the Bahamas, again, you're going to see young families, you're going to see older couples, you're going to see people of all ages, you're going to see young kids. So they're just such popular places for tourists that people are still continuing to travel there all the time.
I wonder, as someone that looks at travel trends and studies this for a living, do people ask you, is it safe to go to some of these areas? Is that a question that you still hear even now?
Sometimes I do hear that question, and I always say that really it's the decision that a woman makes with her doctor, with her partner, and I always recommend, you've got to go to the CDC's website, and you'll see when you visit, they're very clear about outlining the global map and which countries have had outbreaks in the past. And in particular, when you're looking at the Caribbean, the shade that they're saying right now, it's purple, and it says that there's no current outbreaks there. So again, if you look at the website, you really get the full picture, and it's really a decision, it's a personal decision that every traveler has to make when they go someplace.
So if someone says to you, which area should I avoid, you'd point them to, say, the CDC website.
I would, and again, it's about everybody's comfort level.
And when you talk about precautions, there are people who in the documentary that I spoke with who, in Brazil, where the epicenter was back in 2015, 2016, they take some precautions. You know, they'll have the repellent, they'll have the long sleeves, but they're not quite as concerned. And I wonder, are there sort of other precautions that you tell people to take if they're thinking about traveling to an area where there could be this kind of mosquito, and women who, especially who are of childbearing age? Anything that you would tell people to do?
Sure. Well, just like you said, you know, always wear insect repellent. You know, the resorts that would typically welcome tourists are really, they really, you know, make sure that there are no no swampy water. You know, water that's still, that's the breeding ground for mosquitoes. They're constantly spraying. I think too, traveling, you know, when you go in the summertime, that tends to be the more humid months. That's when mosquitoes like to breed, and they're a little bit more active. If you go during the cooler temperatures, which in these parts of the world, it's really January, February, March, things might be a little bit easier. And again, you just have to be really careful and constantly apply bug spray.
Last question I have for you. In terms of the industry and what steps and precautions they might be taking, have you seen any kind of change in the way that they kind of go about either marketing, you know, these areas, especially because of this concern with Zika back in 2015, 2016? Anything that they're doing differently now that you've noticed just in the last few years based on this?
I think they're constantly, you know, making sure that they're a part of the conversation and really educating the consumer about what they can do, about what happened in the past. I mean, look, the reality is people saw the headlines, and the destinations know that they don't want to necessarily shy away from it. They have to be honest with the people that are visiting. And also, again, I think when it comes to travelers, if they go to a place, it's in the destination's best interest for them to have a good time and to want to come back. So actually, what I found really fascinating is when the headlines first started coming out, and really around the fall of 2015, some Caribbean properties, you know, they offered couples refunds or credits towards a future stay if they decided to cancel their trip. And I think that was a really smart way to think about, again, the long-term impact of travel and making sure that somebody would want to come back at a later date.
All right, Jacqui Gifford, thanks so much for stopping by, Jacqui. Appreciate it. Coming up, we take a look back at the start of the spread of Zika 3 years ago. And Dr. John LaPook explains what we've learned since then to help prevent another outbreak.